Hello children, it's your friendly neighborhood Rave saying hello, hi, how you doing? Today's video we're going to be doing a deep dive into my baby, Stella. You guys have seen her in some videos, you've heard her on some songs. Let's do a deep dive into what makes Stella tick. Before we get rolling, I'd like to ask you kindly to please hit that like button, turn that thumb blue and support your boy. It helps out with the algorithm and I'd really appreciate it. Did you do it? Did you? Please? Thank you, appreciate it, you're the best. Let's get back to the video. So it all started with that Strat that I showed you in the last video. And truth be told, that was my main guitar for the longest time. I got that guitar to be my main touring guitar, my main recording guitar, because I liked the Strat setup. I liked how Strats are sort of the blueprint for pretty much every guitar. Really, actually, now that I think about it, the Telecaster is the blueprint for all guitars, and every guitar since then has been an improvement upon that. But I think of the Stratocaster as being sort of the blueprint for modern guitars, for certain. Every problem that the Stratocaster had, future guitars would improve upon, and those guitars, they would be known for what they improved upon on the Stratocaster design. For example, 60 cycle hum, solved by humbuckers. They put in Les Pauls. Les Pauls are a big thing now. Not everybody likes a 25.5-inch scale length, so now there are guitars with 24.75, etc., etc., etc. I've built my taste in guitars off of Stratocasters because my first guitar was a Stratocaster. As a matter of fact, it's this bad boy right here. This is my first guitar. I'll do a separate video for this one in the future. Right now, we're just focusing on Stella. That's what I essentially cut my teeth on, is the Stratocaster. And so when I went to buy my first real guitar, it was a Stratocaster. And after owning a Stratocaster for about a decade, I was able to basically pinpoint where and how the Stratocaster was kind of failing me. So to give you some context, I was making music with spells and curses, and some of the songs with spells and curses sound really great with a single coil sound, and it's very clean and articulate. In my guitar recordings, I value clarity over everything, and you don't get much clearer than a Stratocaster. And a lot of times I'd be able to get really great sounds from the Stratocaster. I mean, it's such a versatile guitar in terms of all the tones you can get out of it. Stratocasters have a 5-way pickup selector. I mean, the tonal variance that you can get out of that guitar is ridiculous. And that's what drew me to the guitar. And so recording with a Strat is a dream, because you're really not limited by much. However, the problem started when I started touring. Doing shows with a Stratocaster, trying to recreate the sounds that I recorded with faithfully, proved to be not impossible, just difficult. Add on the fact that there's 60 cycle hums, it just makes things a little bit annoying. And so through touring and playing multiple shows with spells and curses, I basically found out that I didn't really like how kind of small the neck is. And by small, I mean not wide. I didn't like how thin it felt in my hands, and I have huge hands, so I need a big neck. I did not like how weak the pickup sounded. Now, when I say weak, I mean in an output level. The volume coming out of the guitar was very, very conservative. And in a set from Spells and Curses, you're very likely going to hear songs that are very heavy and songs that are very soft. I would do multiple shows with Spells and Curses where I'd bring the Strat as my main guitar and a PRS as another guitar, because I have it tuned in a special tuning for other songs like Ilonga Mercedes and whatnot. I would find that without fail, every time, the PRS guitar would always sound louder than the Strat. Now that makes sense because it's a humbucker, it's more of a rock guitar and all that stuff, but when it comes to playing a set, that kind of variance is kind of jarring sometimes. For me, the performer, but I imagine more so for anybody who's listening. And so that right there was reason enough for me to start looking into what I'd want to change about this guitar. Now, the good thing about Stratocasters is you can modify them. You can change necks, you can change pickups, you can change whatever you want about them. Honestly, I'm kind of like a Buddhist when it comes to my guitars, because I feel like they all have their own personalities and their own styles and voices and all that stuff. And I felt like to change the neck or to change the pickups, which were my two really only issues with the guitar, would kind of be weird. It just, I don't know, the idea of it didn't seem right for me personally. Only because, again, it had its own thing, and that thing was no longer serving me. And yes, I could make it serve me more by changing the neck and changing the pickups, but again, something about that just didn't, I don't know, sit right with me, I guess. And so that's when I pretty much set out to build Stella. Now, the reason why I built Stella was because I needed a guitar that could handle the wide palette of sounds that a Spells and Curses show just does. We have metal songs, we have post-rock kind of songs, we have ballads, we have some songs that lean into funk, we have some songs that are kind of indie ballad stuff. And I needed something that could pull it off live, or some kind of nice approximation. And that's where this baby comes in. I wanted a Jazzmaster body because I never played Jazzmasters. I've been mostly playing like Les Paul and Strat body guitars. I figured it was time for a change, so I went with the Jazzmaster. Now, when it came to the neck, I knew that I needed the nut width, which is this guy right here, which is basically the width of the neck. It had to be wide, again, because I have big hands. The reason why I need a very large nut width is because my hands would cramp up if it's too small. I've got huge mitts and this just works. And then it came down to choosing the neck profile. Essentially, I was thinking about making it like a fat baseball neck. However, I thought that it might be a better idea to just kind of have like a hybrid where it can feel great, you know, doing the bends and the vibrato and all that stuff while still being comfortable to kind of play fast with. I got something that was thicker than the standard C profile neck that a Fender Strat comes with, but not really something that's baseball neck thick, you know. Another thing I wanted to do is to add a Telecaster headstock onto a Jazzmaster body because, in my opinion, they just kind of look like they're made for each other. And it also kind of just looks cooler. It looks like it just makes sense, in my opinion. I opted not to get locking tuners because locking tuners and I have an interesting history. I have some guitars that have them, but I think for the most part they kind of chew out the strings when done incorrectly. I think nowadays tuners, for the most part, if you get quality tuners, they're going to be fine. You don't really need to have locking tuners unless you're doing whammy kind of stuff, like trem stuff. So I just went with regular chrome tuners. Another thing that I was also adamant about for this guitar was I wanted no string trees. I didn't want anything clamping down on the strings, muffling sound, or affecting its vibration or its natural vibration. I wanted the least amount of contact between the strings and the body. Tuners, neck, bridge, that's it. Now, if you notice here, I did not opt to have the truss rod adjustment right at the top of the neck. Looking back, if I could have chosen, I would have had it right here, like some of the Charvels out there, but I have a neck hilt adjustment right there, which essentially kind of does the same thing. But then I also knew that I wanted to do some really cool stuff with it, and that's where we get to the electronics. Now, one of the coolest things I think that you can do to your guitar is to add a sustainer. Essentially what a sustainer does is it sustains a note indefinitely. You hit a note and that note will ring out forever, or until the battery dies, one or the other. So that's essentially what a sustainer does. It also works as an active pickup. I knew I wanted a middle pickup because I play off the middle pickup a lot. I feel the middle pickup is the best pickup to play any kind of delay or reverb sounds because they cut through. Every time you will hear the clarity of the note, the fullness of the note, and it just works well with effects, I find. So I went with the lace sensor silver pickups, and part of the reason why I went with lace is because of an aesthetic kind of thing that I was going for. I only wanted a maximum of 2 to 3 colors on the guitar. The colors being silver, black, and I guess whatever color this would be. And the whole premise behind that was kind of like to have my guitars be easier to draw. Like if a little kid saw me with my guitar, they'd be able to draw it really quick. I need silver for the body and black for the hardware, and then yellow for the neck. Yeah, that's it. That's my guitar, 3 colors. I wanted to keep it Spartan that way, but I needed it to be flashy because, again, this is a stage guitar for sure. So I obviously went with the silver flake finish. But anyway, going back to the aesthetic and why I chose lace, it was mostly because of an aesthetic thing, and the pickups are pretty cool too. And I've got a volume and 2 tones. This tone controls the tone of the Sustainiac, and that tone right there controls the tone of the Dually. Middle pickup remains fresh and clean. And then what's really cool about this right here is we have a silver red Dually. Now, for those of you who aren't aware of what a Dually pickup is, they're essentially 2 single coil pickups. So this right here, this is 1 single coil pickup. We have 2 single coil pickups in the bridge. One is a silver and one is a red. These are basically different kinds of single coil pickups that Lace makes. The Lace Silver is known for its more kind of like a 70s fat Stratocaster sound. Think the guitar solo in Hotel California by the Eagles. That's basically what it kind of sounds like. And then with the single red Lace sensor, that is more of kind of like a harder rock, harder kind of bordering onto metal sound. Think like Smashing Pumpkins' Husker Du. It handles distortion very well. And so what we have with the Dually is a humbucker out of these 2. And the Dually gets tied over to this pickup selector right here, which essentially chooses between the red and the silver. And essentially what this knob does is it allows you to choose which of the single coils you want to be activated. Do you want the silver lace sensor, the red lace sensor, or both? Now up here, obviously if you select the first position, it's just the silver. All the way down, it's just the red. In the middle, it's both. And they're both activated. And it literally sounds like a combination of both, which is a really interesting sound. these two switches basically control the Sustainiac. One is an on and off, and the other switch basically controls the 3 different modes that you have to select between the Sustainiac. For those who aren't aware, the 3 modes that you can select with the Sustainiac are basically on, mix, and harmonic. And last but not least, I got a little Killswitch here. For no other reason than it's just fun to mess around with, especially live. The cool thing that I did to this guitar, aside from the stickers from my friend Audie, by the way, shout out to her. Ayo! So originally, this guitar was battery powered. You can see that it has a battery compartment right here. Let me show you. So this right here is where the battery would go. You'd put the battery, the 9-volt battery in there, and it's gonna power the guitar. That is before Fishman came out with the USB power thing. I forgot what it's called. Hold on, let me see what it's called. Hold on. So this is it. This is called the Fishman Fluence Rechargeable Battery Pack. There you go. You can see it right there. That's essentially what it looks like. What you do is you take your guitar, you take your USB Fluence charger, after, of course, getting this installed by a very reputable tech. You take your USB plug. That's it right there. You take your USB plug and you put it in right there. And from there, you charge. And this little bad boy turns red, and then when it's done, it's green. Now, one of my favorite things about this guitar is obviously how it handles cleans. What I did not anticipate is how wonderfully it sort of rides the lightning of distortions and fuzz. So you can get really inventive and really kind of push the guitar to the limit, and it'll be right there with you. Case in point, the solo for Bewitching Pool. That's probably my favorite solo that I've ever done, and it came out wonderfully because of this girl right here. I mean, listen to this. Listen to this. Now, I will say, obviously, because this is a custom build, it's probably one of the more expensive guitars I have. I guess like any project, you budget and you plan and manage the project according to the budget, but things happen. Complications arise, repairs need to be made, upgrades have to be made, and you will go over budget if you build a custom guitar. It usually is the case, or it has been the case in the one instance that I did it. I don't regret it at all. Just something to keep in mind. I do recommend people building their own guitars, or at least putting their guitars together. It seems to me, I think like Wes Borland spoke about this, I think, where he said that there's a Japanese company, I think, that sends you a kit for you to build your own guitar, and the reason for that is that players have a stronger connection and a stronger bond with their instrument when they sort of build it themselves. And I gotta say, I really do think that there is something to that. I do feel a very strong kinship with this one. In summation, would I suggest or recommend you to build your own guitar? Yeah, I would, if you know what you want. You know what you want when you're not getting it from the guitars you have or the guitars that are out there in the market. This was a worthwhile investment for me because this is a tool. I make music, I perform music, and I needed something to do what I needed it to do. I did not find and could not find and still cannot find a guitar that does what this guitar does in the way that it does with how it feels. It's just a wonderful combination of all the things that I love about a guitar, and I'm really happy. So there you have it. That's the story of me and Stella. If you like this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up. Again, it will help the channel immensely, and I will really appreciate it. If you watch this video to the end, please comment down in the comments below, Stella! Stella! Like Marlon Brando in A Streetcar Named Desire. I don't know. That's a funny moment. Remember to take care of yourselves and each other. Bye-bye.